Hi, my name's Ron. I'm an alcoholic. Hey guys. Luli's going to come up and chair this meeting. I just want to say thanks to everybody to come out and make this our annual Women's Month every September. It's pretty epic, and we get to have a good time here, and we've had some really great speakers. We're going to have one tonight. Come all the way down from New York City, a special friend. We have plenty of food here, plenty of coffee, hopefully. We run out once in a while because sometimes we get so many people here. It's overwhelming to calculate how much you guys are going to eat. So if you make sure when we're done here, if you eat it all, we'll up more food next week. Lily's going to come over here and take over. Enjoy the night. Thank you.
Hello everyone, welcome. Well, Ron stole all my lines for the September Women's Month, so I won't restate everything. But we do want to welcome you to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm Lily and I'm an alcoholic. This is a 1-hour speaker meeting that meets here every Saturday at St. Paul's Lutheran Church here at 301 North Main Street at 8:30 p.m. every Saturday. The purpose of the group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. And if you wish not to be recorded, just simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first name only? Yes. Wow, that's a long trip. Yes.
Hi, I'm an alcoholic and program representative.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I'm an alcoholic. My name is Dave.
Hey, Dave, welcome. Yes.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen.
Yay, thank you. Yes. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Rich. I'm an alcoholic. I'm from Nashville, Pennsylvania.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
My name's Donna. I'm an addict from Philadelphia.
Great, thank you for coming. All the way in the back. Okay, thank you for coming. Hello, thank you. Anybody else? Oh, yes.
I'm Chris. I'm over here. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Chris, welcome. Glad you're here. And anybody else? Okay. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor, please raise your hand. Wow, okay, so if you don't have a sponsor, please see one of these people afterward. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? No announcements. Okay. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you can't afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs to help those who can't afford them, please put donations in the back counter over there. And if you would like a CD of any speaker, past or present, please see Ron after the meeting. There's a wide variety of them, and they are all available free of charge. And now I would like to ask Lily to come up and read the AA Preamble.
Hi, I'm Lily and I'm an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. I have Kim to come up and read the AA 12 steps.
Hi, I am Kim. I'm an alcoholic. These are the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
So we have a 7th tradition. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, we'll pass the baskets. We have no dues or fees, as we stated before, but we do have expenses: the coffee, cream, donuts, rent, big books, and CDs. Of course, all the food that's generously provided. There's absolutely no smoking on church property. And please silence your cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. So now it's time to introduce our speaker, and this is going to be an epic talk, our last one of the month. And she comes to us from the Solutions Group from Long Island, New York. Please help me welcome Corrina D.
Hi family, my name is Corrina D. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I'd like to start off by saying that God is good all the time, even when I don't think so. Thank you, Ron, for asking me and inviting me here to speak with you, and thank you everybody that's here this evening as part of my sobriety. I've been asked to share my experience, strength, and hope with you, and I've asked the Holy Spirit to help me speak and to have the group's conscience to speak through me also. I arrived in Alcoholics Anonymous completely dead behind my eyes. I was drinking around the clock. If I didn't have it ingested in my body, I was thinking about where, when, and how I was going to get it. I was 30 pounds lighter than I am right now. I was about 80 pounds. My hair was falling out, and no relationships. Alcohol was my master. I know, and I knew that I was in trouble. I knew that I did insane things, and I knew that I drank too much, but I did not know that I was an alcoholic. I did not know what an alcoholic was. I had the idea of what an alcoholic was: somebody with a cherry nose and somebody that looked like they came from the Bowery and that was homeless, and I didn't have that. God in His ever-loving mercy and grace delivered me into Alcoholics Anonymous. I did not have the power to come here on my own. At that time, I was in the grips of alcoholism. I was drinking out of a walk-in closet, and I had ran away from home. I ran away from a 14-year marriage because I'm a runner. I really didn't know how to deal with life, and alcohol fixed that. Alcohol was the solution to every single one of my problems. It never occurred to me that alcohol was the problem. To me, it was the solution. My mind would tell me that I needed that drink because I needed to deal with you. I came from a very tumultuous upbringing. My mother was my tormentor, and my father had left when I was 2. I found myself pregnant at the age of 16, and I was a runaway, and raised a child on my own. Ultimately, that relationship disintegrated, and I found myself once again in loneliness and despair. And I thought those were the reasons that I drank. I really believe that. The loneliness and despair, as described in our textbook, Alcoholics Anonymous. This is Alcoholics Anonymous, this divinely written book. Describes Bill, his loneliness and despair. He talks about that he needed to have 2 tumblers of gin, and he was shaking violently in the morning. And that was my experience when I arrived here. And then it goes down to say in the next pages, nevertheless, I still thought I could control the situation. And that was me. I was living in a delusion. It was me on me. There was no relationships outside of, my head, and I was held captive. Basically, I was sleeping with the enemy. My mind had imprisoned me, and the self-talk was a lot of self-hatred. And I just had a lot of old stories that I was attached to. I could not be present, but I knew that the alcohol could fix that. Alcohol worked for a very long time until it didn't. And so I drank alcoholically from the age of 12. Between 12 and 16, it really took off. But by the time I arrived here, I was 38. So that's a pretty long time to be dragged along the bottom. And so I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and it was the cry of the heart. It was that complete surrender. I had, the last drink that I had was December 26, 2001, and the drunk wasn't any worse than any other drunk that I had had before, but I was tired, I was broken. If I was to illustrate what my spirit looked like, you could take a hammer to a glass. I was completely broken, and nothing was going to fix me externally, because I had tried everything. I had tried men, I had worshipped other things. I had worshipped money, I had worshipped sentiments, people, myself, my reasoning. None of that worked. And when I arrived here at 38, as broken as I'm describing, God placed me in the hands of a person that really loved me. This person was not an alcoholic, and he had a lot of money. And he placed me in a $700,000 home. I had clothes, I had jewelry, I had a Corvette, I had a motorcycle. Somehow I was able to hold on to the job that I had. I had everything externally that a woman could really ever want, yet I was dead behind my eyes. So, this is this internal condition that we arrive here with, or that I arrived here with. I was beyond human aid. I could not stop drinking for my son, which was the one thing that I really did love. And so I got here, and I made my way down to my first meeting, and I sat in the meeting and I cried the entire meeting. Because for the first time in my life, I had hope. As long as I could remember, way back before I even put any alcohol on my ism, there was something wrong with Corrina. I was restless, irritable, and discontented. That's my natural state. That's the earmarkings of an alcoholic. The doctor's opinion describes it perfectly. And so, I had that spirit. I really believe that all of the isms, the stealing, I was a chronic stealer when I got here, a chronic liar. And each time I acted out on one of those character defects, it would rip the fabric of my soul just a little bit wider. I often used to share about how I had this black hole in my chest. That emptiness, that's the loneliness and despair that I arrived here with. And alcohol fixed that. And in the end, by the time I got here, I had a desperate desire to stop drinking. So many want to stop, but they cannot. It never occurred to me that I couldn't stop drinking. I thought that I was making the choices to drink, to deal with life. And once I realized, I tried to do some of the methods that they talk about in the textbook, drinking only natural wines, not drinking in the morning, not drinking on the job, all of these kind of methods to control. And the more I tried to control it, the more out of control it became. And alcohol was my master. You know, I had many first steps out there, but it was not enough to keep me from stopping drinking. It just wasn't enough. You know, these steps are in order, and we need each one of them. With every step, there's a surrender, and with each step, there's a new freedom. You know, and when I made that cry of the heart, God, I can't do this anymore, and He placed me in Alcoholics Anonymous, it was the greatest gift of my life. And that was my first brush up with the Holy Spirit, although I did not know it at the time. And God was always with me when I was doing what I was doing in the back, in the corner, in the dark. But I just wasn't conscious of it. He's never left me, but I did not know that. And so, you know, I stayed around Alcoholics Anonymous, and my first experience was the first 16 months. You know, we're driven by 100 forms of fear. You know, I'm in full flight for reality. Doctor's opinion talks about that. That's part of my illness. I'm selfish and self-centered, self-seeking. I had no idea. Any of this language that I'm speaking to you from the podium has all been learned here, through you, through the text, through God, through the seeking, through the practicing of the 12 steps. And so through my selfishness and my self-centeredness and my self-pity, which, by the way, I never knew I had self-pity. I never knew what self-pity was, but I was drowning in it. And you know, driven by 100 forms of fear, sitting in Alcoholics Anonymous, I would not speak. I would come late and I would leave early. And a lot of judgment, you know, just me on me, a lot of talking in the head, never sharing. And eventually I picked up again. You know, it's not suddenly, it's eventually. Because there was nothing between me and the drink. I still had an alcoholic mind. If you could just stop drinking and going to meetings, our hats are off to you. But if you're a real alcoholic, like I am, you won't be able to pull it off. And it was really important for me to get identified, if I'm an alcoholic or not. It's on page 44, and the question is, you know, when I want to stop drinking entirely, that means for good and for all, can I do it? The answer was no, I couldn't. I had tried for many, many years. And when I take a drink, can I control the amount that I put in my body? The answer is no, you're probably alcoholic. And then they give you the really bad news. If that be the case, then you're suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. Well, I arrived here as an agnostic. I believed in God. I had my mother's belief system. It was handed down, and under her covenant, it was designed to help me to feel guilty and shame. And I believed a lot of things about God and about the world, but I was looking from a distorted lens. And so it was very important for me to have those experiences in order for me to come to the end of myself effort, which means I have no more plans. And that was a very long, tedious process. And the textbook asked, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Why? So that you don't have to suffer as long. And so, you know, they're hoping, the textbook, Alcoholics Anonymous, is hoping that their testimony will help the reader to authenticate, am I a real alcoholic? Yes, I'm one of them. Yes, I believe I'm one of you. And yes, I believe this thing can help me. Do I believe that? Well, I don't think that I believed it then, but I did come to believe. And so, you know, after that, that one day I came back, I raised my hand. Thank you, God, for not, you know, although I'm so happy that my false pride didn't keep me out there. And so I started, the one thing that I did here in the 16 months was get us a couple of things. That if I did these steps, I was going to be okay. And that was the only thing I ever really wanted to be. It was okay. I wanted to be relevant. I wanted to be able to give and receive love. And I was incapable of doing that. But they probably didn't say it that way, but the way I received it was if I do those steps, that I'm going to acquire that. And get a sponsor and do a 90 and 90. So I went on a quest to do a 90 and 90, and in the middle of the 90 and 90, I met a woman who was armed with the facts about herself, which simply meant that she had a spiritual awakening as a result of going through the process. And she graciously gave me her most precious commodity, which was her time. And she had what I wanted, which was bright, shiny eyes, and I know that to be God today. She could smile. She was facilitating the meeting, but that's not what attracted me. It was that shiny look in her eyes, and it's just like Evie, when Evie, Bill and Evie hooked up again. He had that starry-eyed look in his, that's God. That's, and it's undescribable. You can't miss it when somebody has it. And she had it, and I wanted it. I used to think that being a success was all of the things that I already had, which was the house, the car, the man, clothes. And yet I was failing. I had defeated myself. And so we met once a week, and we went through the text. And reading the doctor's opinion really blew the doors wide open for me, understanding that I was in full flight from reality and that I'm maladjusted to life. And that I must believe that my body is as sick as my mind, right? I have to believe that I have this allergy. My mind lies to me. It tells me, I'm only going to have a sip just to take the edge off. And once I believe that, I ingest it, and now the allergy, the second symptom, has been set off, and it makes it virtually impossible to stop. Completely blown away when I read that. And it wasn't because it was in black and white, and it wasn't because the woman across the table told me. My experience backed it up. I kept going. I was drinking out of a walk-in closet, literally. And every day I would say I am not going to drink. But by the time the shakes were off me, the drink would say, psst, psst, I'm in here, just one. Or nobody's gonna know. Whatever that lie was between my ears, and I believed it, I put the alcohol in. Makes it virtually impossible to stop. And the next day when I went back to my homeroom at the time, I raised my hand for the first time and said, I'm Corrina and I'm an alcoholic. And it went from my head to my heart, and I wanted more. I needed and I wanted more. Why? Because I was dying. This is a fatal illness, and it's progressive, left untreated. And I knew that, my spirit knew that. And so I met her again, and we started to read We Agnostic. And, We Agnostic, I just love that chapter. It really helped me to establish a relationship, the cornerstone on which my spiritual foundation was to be built. As soon as, and that's a time frame, I was willing and honest enough to try. He came. God came. He was faithful. I'd been pushing him away for 30 some odd years. But the moment I asked, he came. And soon he was blotted out by worldly clamors. Gotta do the laundry. This guy doesn't love me. These people are crazy. All that kind of stuff. But the Spirit knows. And we just keep plugging along. And I showed up with my willingness. And one of the things that I really, really loved in We Agnostic was that God is approachable. That I didn't have to come as white as snow. Because that was one of the ideas, an old idea that I had. Bill talks about some of his old belief systems passed down to him from his grandfather. To Christ I conceived, a great man, and the people that followed him, and the rest of the stuff, I would just push aside. I was raised Catholic. I loved God, and I loved going to church as a child, but somewhere around 7 and 8, I parted ways. the people that were raising me weren't practicing what they were teaching, and the world got hold of me, and I just went and I started to live of the world. And when my brother passed away, he's about a year and a half older than me, but we were like peanut butter and jelly. But at the age of 19, he got shot, and that was it. I completely cut myself off from the power. I wanted nothing to do with God. And, it took me a really long time to admit in Alcoholics Anonymous, probably 3 years ago, that I was angry at God. That was fine, because I thought he was angry at me. So, and it's okay. It's okay, that you can explore that. But what happened to me is that once I decided that I wasn't going to have a God in my life, I had the God of reasoning. I'm going to figure it out. I was a teenage mom, and I raised my son alone, and, I was going to get the job done. You work hard, you do hard, you'll get good, this kind of belief system. It never occurred to me to ask for help. I just got to do. And it just kept me in bondage, so it was really very relieving to know that I didn't have to believe in God. Was I willing to believe that there was something bigger than myself out there? And yes, I was. I was, because I knew that I had no power to make it to the meeting. I knew I had no power to approach that woman and ask her for help. And, I remember driving home from the meeting with my sponsor at the time, and I looked in the sky and I said, I don't know who you are or what you are, but please keep helping me. And that was enough to make my beginning. And the third step, we read it, we did the third step prayer, which is a beautiful prayer. I had no idea what it meant. I did not. But I stand before you living my third step prayer. I hope tonight that I can show you His power, His love, and His way of life. Because I was dead and I was in the darkness. And now I'm alive and I live in the light. And that's through His power. And I'm here to witness and testify to that. But the technicality of the third step really means, it talks about in the text, when we overcome the spiritual malady, we straighten out mentally and physically. I had it backwards for so long. So how do I overcome the spiritual malady? I pick up the pen, that's a beginning. I start to clear away the manifestation of self which has defeated me, which is my selfishness, my self-seeking, my dishonest, my fearful nature. And there's some promises a little bit before that third step talking about that if I stay close to God, that He's going to provide everything that I need. So it's not a matter of God providing, because He's capable. Am I capable of trusting that He's going to provide for me? So the illustration that I would use would be, at this point, this is a turning point. I'm going to climb up the mountain, and I'm standing at the top of the mountain, and I'm going to jump off into the mystery of life. Because I have the choice. I can turn back to my sinful nature, my character defects, and I can get scraped and bruised up, and I know it's down there. Or I can jump into the mystery of life, which is into the palm of God's hands, and find out what His will is for me. And I can try, as a beginning, to align my will with His. Because I'm going to put my will in His care. God does not want my will. He gave me free will. He wants me to align my will with His will. And that is an arduous task. It means the destruction of self-centeredness. There's a price for sobriety. I have to turn in all things to the Father of light. Now, was I ready at the first go-around? No, I was not. But I was willing to put my trust in my sponsor's hand. And so we began, and I wrote my fourth step, and my fourth step was actually very beautiful. It was just that white noise, the demons that were in my head. I wanted to write this fourth step. I was not afraid of the fourth step. And what happened to me during the process was I started to feel compassion for people. and I started to get forgiveness for myself and for others. And I saw that in that second column. You know, I was resentful at my mother because she was physically abusive. I hated my mother. I mean hate. If there was a stronger word for it, I would use it. She couldn't show up for me the way I needed her to. But that second column is her spiritual disease. As much as she wanted to, she was incapable. I know that today. And so, what does that affect inside of me? And it touches my basic instincts. Now, these instincts God gave us, but I just abuse them. I make these demands on people, and when you can't show up for me the way I need, I catch a resentment. So resentment is the number one offender, but it's not the real problem. It's my selfishness and self-seeking ways, because if I wasn't so selfish, I'd never have the resentment in the first place. By the time I got to the turnaround, which is what mistakes did I make? Well, what mistakes did I make with my mom? I hated her for 30 years, 38 years, I hated her. I never once thought about me running away, how she would feel about that, how embarrassing it could be. I withheld love. I didn't let her be a grandmother to her grandchild. These are mistakes. The hate is a mistake, while the things that she did to me were very, very, very bad. They were bad. It doesn't let the person off the hook. It doesn't say, but what it does say is that I made a mistake by hating her because now I'm cutting myself off from experiencing God and happiness and joy. I've actually given her the power to kill me. And it made a whole lot of sense, writing that. The fourth step takes a lot of courage. There's fear, and when it says, made a searching, so we're going to look, we're going to search fearlessly. Can't be fearless without God. A moral, we're going to look at our habits. So we're going to, just look with God at our habits. That's really all the fourth step is. It's not a big boogeyman. And I could feel years of hatred and just a waste of time fall by the wayside, and I started to get really free. One of the promises, just a little bit before that third step, says that we felt a sense of power and direction flow into us, and we were reborn. So I'm born again in spirit. In other words, all of that stuff that I saw in the fourth step that was defeating me, that manifestation of self, no longer, that's in the past now. I get a chant, my spirit is reborn, it's clean, it's fresh. New mercies every morning. That's the God that I know today. And I get to co-collaborate with that God, right? I can be a participant in my recovery and my life. And I shared it with my sponsor. I was very afraid of the fifth step. There's a lot of humility behind it. I did not want to share a couple of items in there. The text is very clear. It has to be thorough of the heart. It doesn't mean that I have to write down a gazillion names. What's keeping me up at night, and share it completely and honestly with this person. This is, listening is a very spiritual thing, and she was giving me something very beautiful by hearing me and being a witness to my life and my experience in life. And through God's grace, I shared with her everything, and she looked me in the eye and she said, "Me too." And I felt like that was really the end of isolation for me. And sitting in the room, that tail end of 5 for the hour, really just over, looking over the character defects and the objectionable things, that stuff that I didn't want, that had no more value in my life, like lying and stealing had no more value. That hour that I sat there was very alarming. It was like that. And I never experienced quiet. And I know today that that was the peace that surpasses all understanding. Be still and know that I am God. I felt it, even though I didn't know what it was. And I thanked him from the bottom of my heart. The exact promises that are in the book came true for me. And I thanked him. And the next day, my sponsor came over, we did step 6, the formal reading of it. Was I willing, to have these things removed? Was I spiritually ready? This is not a mental exercise. Was I spiritually ready? Well, at that time, I was definitely open-hearted. When I came here, I had a heart of stone. The hatred that I was carrying around, nothing could get in. Even God can't fill a heart of stone. And little by slowly, it started to open. And God broke me wide open. And he called me to a deeper love. And how will I respond? That's the question. How will I respond? And then, we did, and we formally read it. We read the 7-step prayer. It's a beautiful prayer. My Creator, He's made me fearfully, wonderfully. He created me in my mother's womb. And it's telling me, that I'm going to turn in everything, good and bad, because I don't know what's good and bad. Obviously, I have a broken thinker. I'm still new at it. But what it allowed me to do, and what it continues to allow me to do, is to accept all parts of me. The parts that I don't like. So I don't want you to see the ugly. I just want you to see the cleaned up version. I don't want you to see the 80-pound, falling out hair, blotchy skinned, scared little girl. I don't want you to see that. I'm going to hide. But it's in disclosing ourselves that we get better. And so when we read the prayer, it says that we are now done. You've completed step 7. Well, my first go-around, I really believed that it was just that. And it's right about here that we start to grow, we start to mature in our spiritual life. And, there's some prayers that are given in the text. I'm praying in the morning. I'm getting these ritualistic prayers. There's some petition prayers. Even though I'm not quite sure what this God is, I know that it's doing something for me that I am not able to do, and I'm happy about that. There was still some things. Stealing was not completely objectionable to me. I was still stealing. I was afraid to let that go. I remember after my sponsor left, the next day when I walked out, I think not the next day, it was probably like a week after. It was like God in His infinite mercy just opened up the sky, and I saw every character defect. And I got so afraid, I screamed out. There was nobody there. I can't do this. And I called my sponsor, which was very unlike me, because I really didn't use it that much. I'm not really good with that. Even to this day, it's a little bit difficult for me. It's an old idea about respecting authority. And I called her and I said, I can't do this. There's too many of them. I just can't. She said, that's right, you can't. So my understanding of step 6 is that in step 6, I show God my weakness. And in step 7, it's like a link. They go together. It's where my weakness meets God's strength. And it's a co-collaboration of my walk towards God. And so I'm going to actually repent, which means to change my mind. It means to make a turnaround. I'm going to change my mind about certain things. Now, I don't have the power to do that. And for many years in sobriety, I would curse myself and I would condemn myself for not being able to get rid of these character defects, because I should be better by now. And that is useless. That's a sin, actually. God doesn't want us condemning ourselves. What He wants us to do is take a look at it and ask Him in the morning. I have a metaphorical spiritual basket, and this is the practicing that I do. This is the beginning of a lifetime of character development. There's some practices that I do and have been doing to stay in the state that you see me now. Otherwise I would be a loony. For instance, pride. There can be times when I'm prideful. And I notice on my nightly review that I've been prideful maybe 20 days out of the month. Well, that means that there's some more work to be done. And so in the morning, part of my practice, which began in step 6, was what's my offering going to be to God? What character defect am I going to ask God to help me with today? Because I have plenty of them. And so, that would be it. I'd say, God, I noticed yesterday I was being very prideful, or I was judgmental, and I don't want to be that anymore. Can you help me? That's the humility necessary. Can you help me? And we give God his rightful spot. Right? So, in the 8th step, the principle behind the 8th step is compassion. That's what I learned. When I started to write that 8th step, the list, it wasn't just a list. I wasn't just writing a list of names. It really was something from the inside out. And I started to put myself in other people's position as a result of looking at the tail end of the 4th step. Because the 4th step is going to be a lot of what's going to go on the 9th step, right? So this 8th step is can't get the right word, but composing. It's going to compose the people that are going to actually go out and practice what I learned. These steps right here are tutoring my spirit. They're tutoring my spirit. They're foreshadows of things to come, right? So, I came in here, I was rude, I was discourteous, I was sarcastic, I was stubborn, I was unfair, rules applied to you, they didn't apply to me. I had so many things that I needed help with. I was just one big defect looking for character. And I had the blame thrower. That was it, the blame thrower, there it was. I never once would look in. So looking at this 4th step was alarming to see that that I was the problem. Who would have thunk, right? And so I wrote out that 8th step, and I really felt my heart was getting softer and opening up more, and God was calling me once again to a deeper love. And again, with every step, there's a new freedom and a new surrender. First comes the surrender, then comes the freedom. And then the 9th step. The 9th step, some of the people that were in my life, like such as core relationships, my son, he was still living with me at the age of 27, and which was a good thing. And close friends. I was actually making amends before the amends process. It's not recommended to go out and make amends without talking to your sponsor. Or, it's very clear the steps that we take. We write them out, we pray on them, we talk to someone. It doesn't necessarily have to be the sponsor. It can be a rabbi, it can be a priest, it can be a spiritual advisor. But it's absolutely necessary to talk to someone who knows the direction that you're going in. Because it's the spirit on which we make the amends. I don't want to go around making amends to say that I made amends to make myself feel good, like taking a shot of whiskey or whatever else it is that makes me feel good. This is not about that. Am I a changed person, as a result of going through steps 1 through 9? Am I really showing up with the money that I stole? Even if I stole $100 and I only have 5, it's a demonstration of my sincerity. And I can tell you, pretty much every single amends that I made was received very well, very well. I had a lot of misgivings, which means fear, behind almost every single one of them. So I had to keep going back and pressing in, back and praying and asking God. The text is clear about going to the person that you hated, and as I told you, my mother. And I really didn't, I wanted to make it because I was starving for my mother's love, even though I hated her. And you know that's a dichotomy, but that's just the nature of the illness. And I made one approach. It didn't go as planned because I didn't leave the outcome in God's hands. I had an idea of I was going to say this, and then she was going to do that. And it blew up. And there were many different events between my mom and I. When you have these core relationships, there's a lot of history, and there's a lot to be healed. But there is restoration. God is bigger than all of that. God is bigger than all of that. As a result of making the amends with a sincere heart and continuing to be a participant and show up in my sobriety with a lot of tears, a lot of inventory, a lot of frustration, a lot of work, a lot of action behind it, God has restored that relationship with my mom. And the last events that we had was last month in my kitchen. And it's the best ever. I could actually look my mother in the eye and have complete, unconditional love for her. That is truly a miracle. I only showed up with the same thing I showed up with the first day that I showed up with in Alcoholics Anonymous, which was my willingness. And God did the rest. He prepared the soil of my heart, dropped the seed through my sponsor, and the growing was His. And for that I'm grateful. Never thought that that would come to pass. Because that's a really, that relationship, out of that relationship really determines a lot of different other relationships. And so the principle behind step 9 is balance. It took me a long time to get balance in Alcoholics Anonymous. I thought I was going to go home and decode the big book when I first got it. Yeah, you know, if I study hard enough, you know, gather all this knowledge, you know, and sponsor a gazillion women, and I drove myself into the ground. How do I know? How does one know that they trust in God? Because for a long time, in probably the first 6 years, I thought that I trusted God. And I can tell you that I was a hot mess. I was not practicing this. I was praying, but I was giving God demands. They were selfish prayers. I did not practice. I wasn't sponsoring people in the early parts of this. And I thought that I loved God because I was praying, and it was an emotional relationship, right? But I came to know, as a result of falling back into untreated alcoholism, losing the house, losing the bike, losing my leg, losing a home. I was homeless in Alcoholics Anonymous as a result of not practicing what I learned. And it was there that I found the God of my understanding today. Because I had nothing, or did I? I had nowhere to go. I was completely out of plans once again, and I came to the end of my self-effort. And I learned how to trust God, which means I make a prayer, I ask for His will for me, and I rest. So this podium, if I have trust that the podium is going to hold me up, I'm going to lean on it, and I'm going to rest. I'm not going to constantly be doing this, because if I keep worrying and keep telling God the same prayer over and over and over and over, that means that the more I pray and the more I do and the more that I'm going to produce the effect that I need. And so I learned how to pray. You know, the textbook talks about, by the time we get to step 10, we have entered the world of the Spirit. The truth is that I did suddenly realize that God was doing for me what I could not do for myself. And my consciousness of the presence of God was with me. And my spirit was awakened. And I was more conscious of the things that I was saying and the things that I was doing. Step 10 is a culmination of all of the first 9 wrapped up into one. It's a right now step. It's a preventive medicine step. It's asking me to watch the ego, to watch out for selfishness, self-seeking, dishonest, and fearful behavior, so that I can prevent doing it. When they crop up, and they do, because all that stuff that was in there before is still in there. Without God, I have no power to not do that. I'll share a 10th step that I did at work the other day. I'm an amputee. I lost my leg back in '04, and sometimes it can be challenging. Last week, about a week and a half ago, I broke my toe. My big toe, the toe next to it. And so my grandmother would say, grita grok. I was going back and forth like this. I couldn't really walk backward, but I still had the drive to get to work. I wasn't not going to go to work, so I went to work. But I was concentrating more on how I was going to walk, and I was a little agitated because of the pain and the this and the that. And I got into the elevator. I pressed to the 3rd floor, which is where my office is, and the elevator stopped, and I went to go out, and there was a young boy there that was delivering chips and stuff to one of the vending machines. And he had a long thing with all of his stuff on there. And as I went to go step to come out, because I had my head down, I went to step to come out, he was plowing in. And I said, can you let the people out? And then I realized, oh, I'm on the 2nd floor. So I said, excuse me, and I got out, and I let him back in. And elevator door closed, and I did a 10th step. I looked at him and I said, son, I'm very sorry that I treated you that way. That was uncalled for. I broke my toe and I'm a little agitated. I really am sorry that I did that. Oh, no worries, man. It's okay, Mom. Because, they're young. And, and that was awesome. I didn't have to do an 11th step and write about it. So that's one part of the 10th step. Another part can be, just noticing that I want to punch out 10 minutes early and not doing it, because everything is in motion. If I punch out 10 minutes early, I'm a thief. I'm selfish. My coworkers have to lie for me. I'm putting them in a position. So I'm self-seeking because I want more time, and I'm fearful that I don't have enough. So I'm going to have to pray that away, because I'm getting the urge. I can do it. I've been here long enough. No one's going to know. I live a couple of blocks away. I pray on it, and I don't act on it. That's a 10th step. And then the third part of the third component is, sometimes when you have a person that you're resentful at and they're eating your lunch, you've prayed on it, you've written inventory, you've shared not once but twice, like 3 times or 4 times, and it's still eating your lunch. You write it out, you write the inventory again, you take it to God, and you share it with your go-to people. Somebody that's in the program, living this way of life, this is a lifestyle. We call that person, we ask them if they have time somewhere in their day or week, as soon as possible, if they can. And you share it with them. And you do the 4th and 5th step. So it's all rolled up in. We're doing the practicing of what we learned in the earlier steps. And this has been a tremendous help to really disciplining my spirit and my mind, because it's the renewing of the mind each day. And when we get to step 11, this is spirituality in action, right? So this relationship, this intimate relationship now, that I walk around with this spirit that's in me, knowing that there's a God that, this body, this temple, my God lives inside of me, right? That's a sacred thought. Many things that were not objectionable become objectionable once you are aware of that, and the road gets narrower. Some of the practices that I do, I've gone back to the religion of my youth. I love my religion. Religion means to rebind. Religion serves its purpose. It keeps you in bondage if it's not used properly. Thank you, God, that He's allowed me, it's tutored my spirit into a relationship with God. And I love the ceremonies of my youth, and I practice them. One of the things that I do is a rosary, and I meditate with that. And for me, it was very important. My God today has a female aspect, which is the Holy Mother and the Holy Father. I didn't have a mom growing up, so I need that. That's what my spirit needs. Those are the things that I do in order to keep my spirit alive and well and in a recovered state. And my husband and I, thank you, God, that He's put a man in my life that loves God more than he loves me. We both know that we're number two in each other's lives, and we wouldn't have it any other way. We live a God-centered life. You know, we read another book in the morning together. We practice a practice together. We share about that. We share our God, and then we go our separate ways, and we have our own relationship with our own God. And there's many women that I get to sponsor, and sponsorship has been the bright spot of my life. You know, a candle, if you will, the light has been lit in me. And if you light a candle, you wouldn't hide it. You wouldn't put a bucket on top of it. You would shine it into the world. So my job, I am responsible when anywhere in AA reaches out for the help of AA. I'm responsible to be there. And I take that very seriously. You know, I get to do this stuff. And when I'm sitting knee to knee with another soul, with another spirit, with another woman who was dead behind the eyes like I was, and I get a chance and an opportunity to watch the light go on in her eyes and light her candle, and be a part of a movement that's going somewhere, that's something beautiful. It's an experience you will not want to miss. You know, and every single, you know, I once heard a person say that not everybody is meant to sponsor. That is a lethal statement. If you're a real alcoholic, you cannot afford not to sponsor. God needs you. There's an assignment, and there's someone waiting for you. Everybody has a different start, and a different end, and a different beginning. There's one way in Alcoholics Anonymous, clear-cut directions as laid out in the text. This is Alcoholics Anonymous, and this is the way we get sober. There's many different experiences. When we sit heart to heart, knee to knee, together, every single woman, and God has sent me a lot, and I'm so grateful for that, that has entered into my life, has helped heal a part of me that was broken. That fabric of my soul, that black hole that was in my chest, the fabric of my soul has now been restored. I am whole, which means soundness of mind. And these are promises that you get in Alcoholics Anonymous. There's many sprinkled throughout the book. I am just so grateful to be a part of such a beautiful movement. And I'm very, very well aware that I'm only one spoke in a wheel. And that I'm still painfully aware of my character defects, but with God's help, I'm still becoming. Thank you so much for allowing me to share.
It's customary to form a line and thank our speaker. I'd like to thank her one more time for coming down for an awesome job. Thank you. Help us please finish up that food. There's the meeting. After the meeting, we usually head over to Perkins too for half-off appetizers, and I still don't get a cut of that either for advertising. Right? Don't forget our sister groups, the Big Book Study on Thursday, 7:30 p.m., 186 East Court Street. We love the Big Book. We sit there, we read it, we talk about it. We start to live it, and we start to experience those promises that Corrina was talking about, and that we all get to share. Thanks for all coming out, and we have a nice way of closing if you care to join us. Jimmy K from New York City is coming down next week.